Story 1. The Whispering Well of Hebron. In a quiet village near Hebron, an old stone well sat behind an abandoned olive grove. Locals said it was built centuries ago, before any houses surrounded it. For years, children were warned never to go near it after sunset. They said the well whispered. In 2025, a university student named Kareem visited his grandmother in that same village. He had grown up hearing the stories but never believed them. One afternoon, while exploring the fields with his camera, he stumbled upon the well cracked and half hidden beneath creeping vines. Curious, he leaned in and dropped a stone inside, waiting to hear it hit the bottom. But instead of a splash or echo, he heard something else, his own name. He froze, staring into the darkness below. A soft voice whispered again, but this time it wasn't his name, was his grandmother's. The voice sounded desperate, like someone trapped underground. He ran back to the house and told her, but she turned pale and refused to speak. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, Kareem woke to faint dripping sounds. The floor near his bed was wet. He followed the trail to the front door, where muddy footprints led out toward the grove. By morning, Kareem was gone. His shoes were found beside the well, and his phone lay a few feet away. The last video on it showed him holding the camera over the well. A soft whisper said, "You shouldn't have listened," before the footage cut out. The village sealed the well again after that. But every few months, visitors still report hearing a voice when they walk by, sometimes calling for help, sometimes calling a name that no one recognizes. Story 2. The House of Shadows, Gaza City. In one of Gaza City's oldest neighborhoods stood a half-collapsed building that no one dared to rent. Locals called it Beit al-Zilo, the House of Shadows. People said it had survived wars and earthquakes, but always remained standing, even when everything around it was destroyed. In early 2025, a young couple, Yara and Samir, rented the top floor. It was cheap, and they needed somewhere quiet while Samir studied for his engineering exams. The first few nights were peaceful, but soon Yara began hearing footsteps in the apartment above them. The problem was there was no floor above theirs. At first, Samir thought she was imagining things, but when he stayed up late one night, he heard them too. Heavy, dragging steps across the ceiling, followed by faint tapping on the walls. Sometimes they'd hear knocking from inside the closet. One morning, Yara found black handprints on the bathroom mirror, small, as if made by a child. That same day, their neighbor told them the building used to be an orphanage decades ago. A fire had taken the lives of several children, and no one rebuilt the top floor after it burned. That night, the temperature dropped suddenly, and their lights began flickering. When Yara opened the closet, she saw her reflection, but there were several others standing behind her in the mirror. Faint outlines of small figures smiling. The couple fled the next day, leaving most of their belongings behind. The landlord later rented the apartment to another family, but they, too, left within weeks. Today, the building still stands dark and silent. Locals say if you walk past it at dusk, you can hear children laughing from the burned windows. Story 3: The Desert Road of Jericho. There's a stretch of road outside Jericho, known among truck drivers as the Road of the Fading Lights. Drivers say their headlights sometimes dim for no reason, and radios go silent as if the desert itself swallows the sound. In mid-2025, a driver named Lababe was transporting supplies late at night when his truck began losing power near that road. His GPS flickered and his headlights dimmed. As he pulled over, he saw a figure in the distance waving for help, a woman in a long white dress. He approached her cautiously, asking if she was hurt. She didn't speak but pointed toward a broken-down car further along the road. When he looked back to ask more questions, she was gone. Only the sound of wind remained. As he inspected the car, he noticed the engine was cold as if it had been sitting there for years. On the seat lay an old photograph of a woman holding a baby. He froze. It was the same woman he had just seen. He quickly got back into his truck, but when he checked his rearview mirror, she was sitting in the back seat, staring at him. Her reflection didn't move even as he drove. He swerved the truck and jumped out, but when he turned around, both the truck and the woman were gone. The next morning, local police found his truck parked neatly by the roadside, engine running, doors locked. Lababe's wallet and ID were inside, but he was never found. Truckers still claim to see the woman on that road waving for help, vanishing when they get close. Story 4: The Village That Sleeps. In the northern hills near Canaan, there's a story about a small farming village where everyone fell asleep one night and never woke up. In 2025, a group of hikers passed through the area and discovered a collection of stone houses overrun by weeds. Everything inside looked frozen in time plates, still on tables, clothes hanging to dry, doors half open. The hikers stayed briefly to take photos, but when they returned to the nearest town, strange things started happening. Their watches were hours behind. One of them claimed she dreamed of walking through the same village again, hearing faint lullabies. A week later, one of the hikers disappeared. Her camera was found by a shepherd days later. The last image on it showed her standing in front of one of the stone houses. But behind her was a row of people standing perfectly still, their faces pale and eyes closed. Historians say the village existed generations ago, but was abandoned after a sudden illness spread through it. Locals who visit at night claim they can still hear faint breathing sounds when they walk past the empty houses. Some say the people never died, they're still sleeping, waiting for someone to wake them. To this day, no one stays there overnight. Every year, a few thrill seekers go to prove the story wrong, but their clocks always run slow and they return home with gaps in their memory.